Hey guys, in this video we're going to do a WideMaxx kit on the Traxxas Max. Now I know they've been doing this for a while and this car's been out for a bit, and they just came out with the factory WideMaxx, and I haven't seen one in the hobby store yet, so I don't have one, but I do have the Max, and I did pick something up at the hobby store that's cool. It's the WideMaxx kit. Now my understanding is the new one's a bit longer as well, but this will add just about 1.5 inches of width to the car, which is going to be pretty epic really when you think about it, because it should eliminate some of that rolling. It's also going to have, it says this has cold weather arms. Also, this comes with rear springs. I don't know why they didn't do all 4, but it did add springs to the rear of the vehicle because they must seem to think it needs it. And still, we haven't done this yet, so when we go to put this together, and you know, this is a first for us too. We haven't had to turn a wrench on this car. It's worked properly out of the box. It does have some issues that we'll get into in a future video, but for now, we want to get this WideMaxx kit on and see how easily it goes on and what's really required. It looks like they might have some pretty small bits in there that might require some effort. We won't know until we dig in. So we're going to do the full installation here, guys. So this is a full install video. We'll try and speed it up where we can, but this is what it is. Traxxas Max WideMaxx kit installation. Check this out. So here's the kit, and this wasn't overly expensive, about $50 in the store. And we'll take a look at what comes in the box. There's a set of the rear arms, and there's the other set. Now the thing is the arms, there are 2 and 2. Each side is the same. Here's the diagram for how to change out the axles, and these are kind of tricky. We'll go over that when we get there. There we go. And there's some of the diagram here for what we're going to do with the shocks, change the springs. And here's the packet that contains all of the gear that comes in the kit, springs, axles, and so forth. And there's the arms. Now the thing is, there's 2 of each, right and left. So the 2 on the right and the 2 on the left are the same. The top arms are the same all the way around the car, so they're all the same. There's the new springs for the rear, and you'll put the rear springs on the front. Now, these ones are the drive axles to make it wider, and of course, when you make it wider, these are the steering linkages so that the steering arms can reach. And of course, when you rebuild the drive shafts, there's some extra E-clips in case you damage or lose one. So that's it. Here's what comes in the kit. Okay, so there are also several different colors to choose from, and here you go. We'll run down that real quick. So depending on the color of your Max, you can go ahead and get the ones that match it. So we'll get everything torn apart here real quick, so we'll go ahead and get the tires off. There we go. And we'll get the body out of the way. And let's have a look at it just to see what we're going to do here. Now we're going to speed a lot of this up. So let's go ahead and take the bottom pieces off first. Try to get to the rear end. There we go. There's a couple in the back here too. And then a couple in the top. Back these out. And this comes right off. There you go. And that is actually the unit that holds the hinge pins. Now we'll detach the shocks, and we'll go ahead and start on this side here. And the arm comes off just that easy. It's real simple. Now we're going to take the bumper off. You get that one screw in the top, bumper comes off. Put the screw back just so we don't lose it. And now we'll drop the block on the other side. Pull out the hinge pin, and there you go. The new arms are longer. So we'll go ahead and we'll back this out, and we'll get that block and drive shaft off. This is corner 1, and all 4 corners are going to be about the same. Now these are stuck on pretty good, guys, so you're going to have to pry this off, go all the way around nice and even. And don't lose your components. We'll just sort of keep those together so we don't lose them. And then we can pull this right out of the bearings. Just like that. Now we'll go ahead and clean up everything. And these only slide on one way, so make sure that you get them lined up so they slide easily. Okay, now these are a little tricky, but if you push straight along with the clip, you can slide it off right there. And it's just like so. It pops right off. And this is a pin that pushes straight through, so just push it in a little bit. Grab it on the other side and pull it through. There we go, and just a little tug. And now if these have some mileage on them, they may be a little tough to get out, but they do come out. Then you slide off this half, and you've got a pin through a block here. So we're gonna go ahead and take that other pin out. And we'll just push it through, nice and easy. See how it's got a hole in it? It matches that block perfectly, just like that. So there's the small hole and the larger hole, and those are for the 2 pins. Now with the new arm, we're gonna go ahead and line up that big hole, like so, and then push the big shaft through it. Now line up the inner hole, there it is, and we'll go ahead and take something that'll go through. Any tool that fits in there will do the job. And we'll line those up before we stick the next piece on. Check the alignment again, make sure they're lined up evenly, just like that. And this can be a bit tricky, so just some patience is all it really takes. And then slide this piece through all of those components. If it doesn't go through right away, just realign it with the tool. Then we're going to go ahead and put the E-clip back on, and we're going to go ahead and pinch it down real careful. Now, you got to make sure that it goes all the way on. Right in here, there should be no gap between the pin and the E-clip. That lets you know it's on all the way, and things should pivot nicely. Once you're done, just go ahead and get a little silicone lube on there just to prevent any corrosion. Slide it back through the housing and the bearings. Put your drive pin back in it, and make sure you center that up good, and then put the hub over that. Now these don't push on easily, they're a really tight fit. This is a soft dead blow hammer, so I'm not doing any damage, and it was light taps and it popped it right on. Now things are back in shape and ready for installation. We'll go ahead and take the top arm off, replace it with the new one, just like so. Then we'll make sure the drive shaft goes on properly, and we'll install that one. Now we'll go for the new arm, and we'll install that as well. Just like that, easy peasy, nice. Now we still have to do the shock absorbers, so we'll just take that one off for now. We'll do the same thing on the other corner, and we'll replace the arms. And since we already showed you how to do the drive shaft, we're going to skip that here. So this one's already been rebuilt, and we'll put it back in place. And we just did the abbreviation there, guys, just so that this won't take all day to do. This actually goes pretty quickly. The time-consuming part is rebuilding the drive lines. The rest is pretty straightforward. And when you do that, make sure everything moves freely. Now we'll remove the shock absorber on this side too, and then we'll put everything back together on the rear end. So we'll slide this unit in, put the screw back in place to hold that in. It's nice the way that just sort of plugs in the tail. Just snug everything back down. Beautiful, just like that, and then check the torque, make sure everything's snug. But like I say, just plastic, so don't over tighten. Once you over tighten them, you pull the threads out, you'll never keep the screws in place. So you got the two in the top here, And let's not forget, make sure everything moves smoothly. We'll set that out of the way. Let's go ahead and work on the shocks now. So first off, we want to go ahead and get the fluid out because we're going to change the fluid here. So we're going to change it to they call for 50 weight in this one, but we're going to use 35 weight because I want it to move a little easier, and that's just personal preference. Disassemble is easy. Pull down on the spring once you get it back in place. Slip the keeper in place like so. Then snap it up on the end piece and set the spring in place. Now these are really nice. They have a keeper that goes between that end cap. See there? And just put that back in place. It's really nice. It keeps it from hopping loose. So now we're just going to go ahead and fill it, get the air out, get it up close again. Now it's need to be full enough here to where that cap takes up the extra space so there's no air in there, because the air is going to be on the back side of this silicone plug. Then rethread the top in. There we go. Just like that. And now that shock is done. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing for both and then adjust them. And now we can put it back in place. Line things up, get the bolts in. And torque those down nice and easy. Okay, same thing for the other side. Get it lined up, and they'll go in, but you have to get it lined up right. Once you get them in line, that'll slide right in, and then torque it down. Beautiful. Now we'll get it installed in the bottom, in the arms there, and of course run the screw in there as well. Beautiful. Nice and easy, everything moves good. Same thing for the other side. I know this is kind of redundant, but if you've never done this before, I'm hoping this helps. So we'll go ahead and run this down as well. I was really surprised at how straightforward this is. Everything moves good, the parts are made well, and it goes together pretty simply. Now let's move on to the front end. Same thing, we're going to go ahead and get the bumper out of the way and detach everything from the bottom because we have to have access to those hinge pins again. Now this is a cover that covers the drive line, but you need to back those first two screws out so you can get this skid plate off. So we'll get all the screws out of the bottom of the skid plate, and then of course you have these two. And see it coming loose on the bottom there? Nice. And that slides right off. And now should be able to lift the skid plate right out of the way. Pull the last screw here and the hinge pin brace cover comes right off. And we'll start backing out the screws for the arms. Shocks first, and you can do it in any order you want to. I just find this works well for me, so that's fine. Go ahead and detach the shocks. Now the springs that you took off of the back shock absorbers when you changed them, take the springs you took off and place them on the front shocks. That's the way this is designed. So put the rear springs that you removed on the front springs, and then when you're done you should have the old front springs left over. Keep those hinge pin braces, the pins and everything, I just like to keep them in place so you don't misplace anything. The more you can keep things in the same location, the easier reinstall is. We'll go ahead and detach the steering arms, put the new ones in place, and these are going to be longer, so that's what we have to do to replace them because we're making everything wider. Put the new one in place, just swing it out of the way, and we'll go ahead and take the top brace off. So the top arm's going to come off just like that, and we'll put the new one in place. There we go, line it up, and go ahead and screw it down. Just like that. So here's the new arm, and we're going to go ahead and install it. Now each one goes to a specific side, so make sure you line up the right one and put it in place because it has to have room for the shock absorber. So you can tell on the front side, that's where the shock mounts, so that's the right one for that. So now we'll go ahead and change the steering arm. Take this one off because it's short now, it's not going to work. Now the axle's already been rebuilt because we showed you how to do that already. Go ahead and fish it back through the component there. Put the pin in place, and like I say, center it up before you put the hub over it. And just sort of lightly tap it down until it seats into place. There's a couple of ways to do that. That's just the way I like to do it. So make sure you line up the splines so it slides on evenly, and that might take a couple of rotations till you find the right location because they don't slip on anyway. You have to line them up just right. There we go. And then go ahead and hook it into the arm. Oh, it goes in the other side there. Come on, line it up. There we go. Nice and easy like that. And of course, torque it down. And don't over torque it, just enough to hold. And then hook it into the top arm as well. Things lined up properly, it'll go right in. There we go. And we'll go ahead and run this one down. Beautiful. Now we're going to go ahead and get the shock absorber in place. Hook it down. Now this has the new springs on it. It was the same as doing the backs, we just swapped them over for the other springs. So those springs on the shocks now in the front are the springs that came off the shocks in the back. We'll go ahead and hook up the new steering linkage. And these are not adjustable, so they're going to go in the way they're supposed to, and that's that. It's all designed as a kit, so you don't have to worry about alignment and all that because they're designed properly for that. So now you've got a wider corner on the car. Last corner, we'll go ahead and do the same thing. So we'll detach the carrier block assembly, and we'll get that arm off the top first. And of course, I like to keep the pins in place so that I don't lose which way they go in and whatnot. Not that it matters too much, but I just like to keep things where they go. Now we'll remove the arm screw so that we can get that steering linkage arm out of the way. There it is, that's the old one. We'll put the new one in place. And we'll screw it down, just like so. There we go. And we'll go ahead and get that whole set off. Just like that. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall the top one, put the new one in place. Line things up. There we go, tighten it down. There we go. Real nice. Now we'll put the last arm in there. Get it lined up and slide the pin through. And then line it up, slide the axle on, and connect it to the top arm there, which would be the bottom arm once the car's flipped over. Now we'll go ahead and put the retainer back in place for the pins, and we'll tighten this up. There we go. Go ahead and connect the top arm, and we'll tighten it down. Connect the steering linkage. And like I say, these are really well made, so they go together real easy. Everything moves nice and simple. We'll get the shock absorbers connected, and once they're lined up, we'll go ahead and run the screw in. Those can be a little bit tricky to get in, but they do fit if you get that spreader in there in the shock lined up properly. Put the bumper back in place, snug it down. There we go. And now we'll go for the skid plate. So this thing, you'll have to get it sort of underneath that cover for the driveline and then snap it down into place. That's why you have to loosen those first two screws there. Just like that. Check the torque and everything, run these down, make sure everything's good to go. Just like that. And we'll put the last two in here for the bumper. And there we have it. So now it's time to put the tires back on. Pretty straightforward here. Now I just run them down close with the gun here. I don't torque them down with the gun. Always use the hand tools to tighten this stuff down. You can feel as it snugs down, as it finishes that, you can feel it, it'll finish that down where you're pulling the hub the rest of the way on, because I only tapped it down enough to hold the pin. Then everything, check it for work, everything works really well. Nice. So there you go, that's the installation for the WideMaxx kit. You know, it was a pretty simple kit to install. It did have some tricky bits, but check this out. Look how wide that is now. Now it's almost wider by our whole tire. That should give it some really good stability over what it had before. And unfortunately, since we got so much snow up here, I'm unable to drive it. I did give it a shot, went out into the yard, threw it out in the snow, and it just spun the tires. So we're not gonna get any running footage on this one, but the kit went on good, and as soon as we can test it, we will. That being said, we are fully aware that they've come out with the Traxxas WideMaxx. Now, it basically is a Traxxas Max. It's supposed to have this WideMaxx extension for the arms already, and rumor has it, it's just a bit longer too. I don't know what to think of that. You know, it needed the width. I don't know if it needed the length. It does stand up pretty easy, and if they did make it longer and a little wider, they're trying to get into the footprint of the Creighton. I mean, that's the deal on that one. It's a bit longer, it's a bit wider. Now all of a sudden this one's a bit wider, a bit longer. It opens a whole can of worms there. But if you're into Traxxas, and I like Traxxas, don't get me wrong, if you're into Traxxas, this might just be the answer. But if you can't afford one of those, or if you've already got one of these, this is a simple fix to give it more stability. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. It's awesome when you do, and we really like it around here too. But don't forget that notification bell to stay informed of upcoming videos. You know, this is just one modification for this car. If you guys have more mods that you've done to yours to make it better than what comes out of the box, please feel free to leave it in the comments down below and help others along the way. You know, here at the studio, we try to take these things out and get all kinds of busy with them because that's what we like to do. But lately we've got a lot of snow and we're not able to go out. We have icy streets with no pavement showing. We've got 10 to 12 inches of snow. We're pretty much locked down. If we go run in the street, slip and slide's all you're gonna get, and how entertaining is that? That's why we're working the bench this winter, because that's what's required. So until next time, I'm AJ with AJ Jam Studios saying, keep wrenching, guys.